is the Rangers Journal Night.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers Journal. My name's Kevin. I'm going to be the host for this evening. I am going to be joined by three in total. I know there's only two on screen at the moment. Steve is just having some technical issues and he'll be with us momentarily. But first of all, Chris, thanks for coming on, mate. How are you doing?
Good evening, Kev. Good evening, Dino. Great to be on, lads. Thanks for having me again.
And Dino, mate, how are you getting on?
I'm doing good, mate. Thanks. How are you getting on?
Good, mate. Good. I feel us three are going to be the standard Thursdays now, just with a few rotations each week, which is pleasant to see. And like I said, we'll be joined by Stevie just once he's able to get logged on. And evening to everyone in the chat, guys. Something a wee bit different this Thursday from our standard Q&A session, which is our normal pod on a Thursday. This evening, we're going to be focusing on what the guys believe the transfer targets that are required between now and the end of the window to hopefully start seeing Rangers click. But I suppose before we get into that, I'll ask the guys how they're feeling after Tuesday. Do you know how you're feeling after midweek?
I designated myself to jump on the post-match pod, and just for a bit of some raw emotion on it. And I've obviously 2 days later, you're obviously a bit calmer, aren't you? And things, I guess, have obviously the dust has settled, but still pretty enraged by the first 20 minutes, to be quite honest with you. But I think more enraged, as I said at the time, because I said last Thursday on the pod that I feared the worst, and I didn't want it to become a reality, but unfortunately it was.
It was a crazy 20 minutes. Definitely not how I anticipated. I don't know why, because I think we've all been expecting that sort of result coming in, but I didn't expect that 20 minutes. I was like blown away by it. And it's not been a great week, I suppose, for Scottish teams in Europe, by all accounts, including this evening's games. And Stevie, technical issues are brutal, mate, but it's good to have you on, mate. And I fully loaded question to kick you off. How are you feeling after Tuesday?
Good evening, lads. Good evening, everybody. Sorry for being late on my laptops. It's been a pain in the backside, so on the phone. It's as you've kind of covered there. I think we all kind of saw it coming. But to see it kind of laid bare like that was really painful. But even the weekend's game against Alloa, that's a League One side, and we struggled, like we toiled. So I was kind of in the back of my mind, I was like, this is going to be very difficult against Bruges if we're not at it for the first whistle, and we were the opposite of that. And personally, I always thought it was going to be like a record defeat. Bruges basically stopped playing after it went 3-0. It could have been so much worse. They just thought, right, job's done. But yeah, it's quite a difficult one to come back for. I don't want to give up entirely, because obviously there's another tie to play, but it's going to be very difficult to get anything out the return leg. St Mirren first is going to be a difficult game as well. They all look like difficult games. Sorry to sound the prophet of doom, but it's my early season optimism is quickly diminished, I'm afraid.
Definitely. And Chris, I suppose, double question for you, how you're feeling after Tuesday. And I suppose just a follow-up to the point Stevie was making. Do you have any optimism for next week? Do you think there's any chance? Do you think that goal's helped us in any way?
Let me take that one first, Kev. No is the honest answer to that. I genuinely, I don't think it's helped in any way, shape or form. Stevie says Bruce took their foot off the gas 25 minutes in, 30 minutes in. But saying that, they still had 3 or 4 great chances and they could have made it even more. But no, I don't think there's any way back. I think we will struggle over there. I think we'll be wide open as we were on Tuesday night. And I think, look, on one hand, I was like yourselves, I was astonished in terms of what we were watching for that first 20 minutes. But on the other hand, I said to my wee boy, I'm not surprised about what we've just seen in there, because Steve says, we spoke about this last Thursday, we knew this was coming. We knew that it was going to happen at some point. And I think we've seen in some of the pods and the tactic shows and stuff like that that's been coming up that some of the defensive issues were absolutely horrendous, and we're wide open, and we've got nobody else to blame but ourselves. The thing for me, Kevin, I think, which is really worrying me, is you go 3-0 down, and at that point, I think the fans quite rightly thought it could be 4, 5, 6 before even half time. What really worried me was there was no changes made, no changes to tactics, no changes to personnel. I know people will say that if you make a change that early in the game, you're potentially throwing people under a bus. I don't think that's the case in that one. When you go 3-0 down, anything's at play, and there, and you should be taking some changes and trying to breathe new life in it. Give the fans something to hope for, and that. And I was even more astonished that same 11 came back out for that second half. And I think when you look around Ibrox, for anyone that was there, when that same 11 came out, that's when I felt the atmosphere absolutely 100% died at that point, because you've seen the level of supporters who walked out the ground at that point in time, because there was just no hope there. And okay, we played okay in the second half, but it wasn't good enough. Anything could have been a marked improvement on that first half. And I think the challenge is now, Kev, is that teams know how to play against us. They can play our set up better than what we can. And as Stevie said, I've not got that optimism now for this season, and I don't see it getting any better unless something drastic changes, whether that's a drastic change in personnel, which we could maybe talk about, whether that's a change in the manager, or whether that's a change in tactics. Something drastic has to change at Rangers, otherwise we're going to see the same time and time again.
And I suppose that follows up nicely, mate, to the reason why we're here tonight and what we're going to be talking about on the pods. Because I think what we'll probably go in with the standpoint of is that Russell Martin's going to be here for the time being. I'd imagine every Rangers fan is probably hoping that we do turn that around. That's the ideal situation, and we start to click and things start to work well. But I think it's probably evident at the moment that we still need help. We still need surgery to the squad, whether that's outgoing certainly, but also potential for some real quality to come in. So the plan for tonight is that the guys are going to talk about some of the key positions that they feel's inevitable that we need to replace or that we need to fix. And then some of the guys are also going to talk through some of their recommendations as well. Stevie, we'll start with yourself, mate. What's 3 of the key positions you think Rangers need to improve on in this window?
The dugout? No. I'd love to see a proper centre forward. We've always been linked to a few through the summer. I think the Israeli lads away to the MLS, the Turgerman, which is quite disappointing. I was really keen for him to come into the setup because he looked like an all-rounder, like a really good physical, mobile centre forward. We did a pod at the end of May, about 3 months ago. We're talking about domestic signings, and I was really keen on Kieran Bowie at that point, and I kind of wish we'd made a move for him because we'd have got him a lot cheaper than now. So he's a really physical, kind of technical. He loves the duels. He doesn't seem to lose many battles with centre halves. You saw his goal last week. You know, he's not frightened to take a pop for like wherever. Just somebody who offers a real physical threat as a lone striker. I think he can play that role. I've kind of followed his career. You know, he's done really well at Wraith as a 16-year-old. Got the big move to Fulham. Went out on loan to Northampton, I think it was. Did well there and came back up the road. Great bit of business for Hibs to get him. And he's developed. He's a Scotland international. I expect him to be Scotland's number 9 for a few years. The way he's progressing. I don't know if like other guys in the pod have mentioned it before. They weren't that keen, but I think just even seeing him how he's developed start of the season, that's the kind of strike I would swap him for, like Danilo in a heartbeat. I know Danilo got in the net in the score sheet the other night, but Danilo's just, I think he's been done by the injuries. He's not offering enough at anything. I feel bad for him because I really want him to succeed, but he's been injured too much. He's not really a threat. Desser's probably still go, perhaps. I wouldn't mind Desser staying, but to me, Bowie would be like a really good number 9 option for us. Granted, they need service. You know, I think Danilo got 1 cross the other night and he scored for it. That's another part that really needs to improve at Rangers, is the service to the front man. But I think he would, you know, add something to our squad. Young Scottish, traditionally we always do sign, or maybe not recently, but you know, in eras gone past, we'd always try and sign the best players for the league. And to me, he's kind of right in that category.
Do you think he could, and obviously I've pulled Bowie's stats up I would love to say I'm an avid watcher of Kieran Bowie, but I'll be honest, out with maybe a couple of games, especially against us towards the end of last season, but I know he did come on to a good bit of form. And then obviously watching the game last Thursday, actually, just before we come onto the pod, he did look good. His goal was great. Stevie, do you think he's the sort of player that Rangers could bring in and could start for Rangers and make a difference?
I do. Game against Celtic they played last season, he absolutely ruined them. Carlton Vickers gave him a great battle. He's no scared in the slightest, so he enjoys that physicality. He's tested in the league. Like I say, I think it's going to be difficult to get him now. His price has probably went through the roof with the way he started the season. So it's a difficult one to get. But if we could offer him a seriously increased wage, it might be something he'd look at. Like I say, I wish we'd tried to sign him maybe a month or so ago, because I think we were a far more attractive proposition before we actually started playing football this season. I'm sorry to be cynical, but I think he would definitely give him the chance. If we put the money up, then we'll maybe get him. But as far as I'm concerned, he would be a big improvement to what we've got just now.
And I suppose transfer fee, transfer market have got him valued at $1 million. I think a lot of that could be dependent on their European progression hopes. I'm scrambling trying to see the current Hibs score. It was 2-0. Don't know if the chat can update me if that third goal did get chopped off. I know me and Chris were talking about it before.
I think it did.
Chris, did it? So Chris, I know we kind of touched on Kieran Bowie. I think you had a couple of things to say about him last week. Do you think he's one that could come in as a starter or squad option? What was your thoughts?
And Stevie, I think you made a couple of great points. I probably wrote the boy off last week too harshly, if I'm being honest. I think at the time I was saying, when I looked at this last week, I said that for me, I didn't think he was a starter at that point for Rangers. I don't think, and I probably still don't think he's a starter for Rangers at the moment, right? But what I would say is, I did watch back the European game that Hibs had after we spoke about Kieran Bowie last week. And I've watched them now in a couple of games. I've tried to analyse them a little bit in a few games, and I can see what Stevie's saying. I think he looks a really cracking player. He's somebody up front that's really mobile, and I think if you can, as Stevie said, compare him to Danilo, and even possibly compare him to what Dessers brings to the team. Would Kieran Bowie be an upgrade in that? Absolutely, I think he would 100%. My challenge at the moment is, if you put Kieran Bowie in that Rangers side, would he be a guaranteed starter just now? And I think that's where I'm in that mindset, Kev. I think we need someone in there who is going to go with a guaranteed start, someone that's going to put a bit of presence up there. And Kieran Bowie, while he'll move in and around and he'll run off a striker and he'll play in between the lines, I think for me, Rangers are needing someone up there who can be the target man and score the goals. But look, Kieran Bowie, I think is a great shout, and I think Stevie's right. He brings a lot of qualities that, whether that's this season or next couple of seasons that Rangers could try and get, I think he would absolutely be an asset to Rangers going forward.
No, definitely. And Dino, what's your thoughts in terms of that striker position? Do you think it's definitely a priority for us, and do you have anyone in mind?
I'll be quite honest with you, I don't have anybody specific in mind, but it is as top list the priorities that we need as far as I'm concerned. And in terms of Kieran Bowie coming in, I wouldn't be against it. I'd be more for it, but I would be wanting the starting number 9 to come in round about the same time. I feel that our centre forwards were very, very crap in that department as far as I'm concerned. Iggerman's head's been turned, and doesn't really look like he's given it the way that he did last season. And the reasons that we just touched on, Danilo and Dessers there, I don't need to go into. So we are needing somebody to come in, but I think for being the way that we are as fans at the moment and how cheesed off we are with everything, a marquee signing centre forward would give the fans a much needed lift. But at the same time, bringing in Kieran Bowie could come in and be a good squad option, but do a job in the interim, because the marquee signing might not be able to come in and be all firing on, all cylinders to begin with. So, and also we're lacking in the homegrown department for players for the European squad. So, and we're obviously definitely going to be in the Europa League. So having somebody like Kieran Bowie is very, very important.
And there's been a few shouts as well. Dalby, Bruce Anderson. I've seen a couple of shouts for Miovski as well. Chris, do you think any of them would be classed as a marquee striker signing if it wasn't to be Kieran Bowie?
Miovski, possibly. But you look at it, he's taken a step up in where he's at just now, and has he really set the heaven alight there? I don't think he has, based on what we've seen. So for me, possibly no on the Miovski one. The other names have been banded out. No, I wouldn't have taken Dalby or Anderson. They're not for me. They're not Rangers players. They're not Rangers class players for me. Just in the comments, some of the comments talking about Eagleman, and I know we were talking about potentially his head being turned, but I think something's not right with Eagleman this season. I know we've hardly seen him, but he just doesn't seem to be in the same frame of mind as what it was last season. Now, whether that is, as we think, his head's been turned, whether that is he's not fit 100% at the moment, or whether it's something else, there's something definitely not right there. Now, again, it could be he doesn't fit into the system that we're trying to play, but he would be my starter all day long, ahead of Dessers, ahead of Danilo, but he's just not in the right frame of mind for me at the moment, I don't think, and we need to understand what's causing that, and I think he continue to persist with that, it's just going to impact us going forward. But no, I wouldn't use any of those. I've got another one in mind, Kev, that I think would be a cracker for Rangers, so which I'm sure we'll come on to.
Yeah. Hold it out for your wee slide, mate. Definitely, that's fine.
Absolutely.
And Stevie, the next one for yourself was Harrison Burrows. Talk us through that one and why you think that would be important for us.
Yeah, so he's left back for Sheffield United. Granted, we've just got the boy from Brentford, who I thought was probably our best player on Tuesday night. I thought a great debut, but he's only 19. I don't think you can expect a 19-year-old to play like 40, 50 games in a season, so maybe somebody a bit more established. He's kind of came through the pyramid in England, did really well at Peterborough, got the move to Sheffield United, and he just looks really, really athletic, good on the ball. He's got quite a few assists, great crosser, very athletic. Like I say, really bombs up that wing in support of the midfield and the striker. Got a few goals, a few assists, and he looks to like really does well under pressure. He seems to take the ball and turn. There's no fear at all. Really drives the team forward at pace. He just looks like to me, he looks like a kind of perfect modern fullback. Good defensively, good going forward, a real talent. Again, might be one that's with their price range, to be fair. I'm maybe playing fantasy football here with these targets, but he just looks like somebody who would really benefit Rangers. Quite a strong player. And he looks like he's got a bit of metal about him as well, which I think is really important if you're going to come to Rangers. So yeah, he just ticks a lot of boxes. Like I say, he's kind of progressed well through the English leagues and done well at Sheffield United. So I think he might actually play with Fernandes at Peterborough, because he put a tweet out when Fernandes signed for us a month or so back saying congratulations, a great move. So you never know that there could be a relationship there already.
Definitely. You probably thought at the start of the window Rangers left back probably wasn't going to be the priority, but then obviously where we found ourselves with Jefty moving on for a deal which is probably really beneficial for both the club and for Jefty. You've then got Yilmaz, who's constantly linked with a move away, going back to Turkey, and then obviously Robbie Fraser moving out to Dunfermline as well. It's left us really light, and I think probably what you don't want to do is the young boy, I thought he played well. Like, I agree with you, Stevie. I thought he probably was our best player between him and Gassama. I thought they both linked up really well, and he was probably the one I was most worried about going into the game. How I was wrong, obviously, going by Tuesday's performance. But you probably don't want to make the same mistake as what we made with Jefty, because I thought he played way too many games last year for a young player, and he's even younger, being only 19. Chris, do you think... Chris or Dino, actually, one of you, do you think left back is a priority or one of the priorities? Dino, we'll go with yourself.
Aye, it is. Very much so. I would say the centre forward position, but you've got to argue that the left back is as well. So, as Stevie said, 19-year-old that's not had much time on the pitch as a professional, to be then relied upon to play 50, 60 games, detrimental both to the club and the player. So, unless you're Ashley Cole, right enough, but I think that's probably the only player I can remember in recent time, or can you call that recent time, that would have been 19-year-old and been able to play 50, 60 games a season. That just is unheard of these days. So, yeah, that's definitely a position that's got to be looked upon, and I appreciate you've went with somebody that's, for the reasons, Stevie, but we're crying out for experience in the squad. And I know 23's, been about for a few years, but I'm looking for somebody in the 25 to 30-year-old bracket, maybe closer to 30 for me, somebody that's been there and done that, and that would come in and give some added, much needed and added experience. So as much as the centre forward, I would say is number one. I would say that left back is a very close number two.
Can I just come back there quickly? Sorry.
Go for it, Stevie.
Just, I wouldn't disagree with I would like to see experience as well, but the way we're targeting players, it's always going to be resale value. So I couldn't see us going for somebody like that experienced. I think it will be more, somebody in the 20 to 25 bracket.
I remember there was I don't know if you were on the podcast, Stevie, but actually around about this time last year, and it was an interview with Edu, and he was going on about players that they're signing and their worths to their contracts and things like that, and basically saying that they're not targeting only players that are going to be resale values, but targeting players that might be slightly older, but they're bringing a different value to the club.
Mm.
And I just
100%. I mean, look at Sunderland signing Xhaka. That's amazing business. Look at how he's just running that team already. So, I mean, if somebody was available, yeah, definitely take somebody like established. But we just don't know what Thelwell's going to do.
No.
I think it's about getting the balance right. I think it was actually Mitch in our group chat earlier on today made a good point, should I say, that Thelwell probably does have experience of doing it at his time at Everton. I think we're bringing back the likes of Ashley Young, for example, towards the end of the window. I think we could probably still have time for some of the experienced guys to come in, but I think a lot of that's going to be dependent on some of the guys on the fringes moving out that are on high wages. And that's where you then might see some more experience coming into the team, which I definitely do think is needed, because I think leadership on the pitch has definitely been a huge talking point. And Stevie, moving on to your third player that you wanted to look at, which is Leo Walter. If you want to talk through him, position, and why you think he'd benefit the team.
So straight away, the guy's called Walter, and we all love Walter, right? I mean, that's like the best name you're going to get for a player. So, like shirt sales alone, this guy would be worth it. So I kind of follow Scandinavian football a wee bit, because I always think that players from there tend to do well in Scotland. I don't know if it's like a similar climate or whatever, but they've got a good record in Scotland. And this guy's done really well. Finnish international, he's got like 6 caps. He got an assist against England. Really good technical goal scoring midfield player. So really takes the ball, he drives and he shoots from anywhere, both feet as well. Kind of reminds me almost like Hadji, but with a bit more pace, and obviously younger. And I think he's got so much potential to develop. I'm not writing off the midfielders we've got. I want to see Cameron given a run in the team, because I think he's delivered. I think Curtis has delivered. I want them to play more regular than what they have been. But this guy, like I say, he just looks like a real talent. Kind of variety of goals and link-up play. And I wouldn't be surprised if we maybe moved on Diamondi. I mean, there's still rumours about Raskin moving on, so I think maybe one more midfielder could be, wise to get in. And this guy, like I say, if you look him up, look at some of his videos, some of his goals, a real talent. And he might not be that expensive yet, even though he is a full international. I think he's good metrics, and I think he would do well in Scotland for Rangers.
Do you think he'd fit into like one of the 2-8s then that are playing ahead of, whether that be Rothwell or Raskin? or would he be more advanced, do you think, in the
I
sort
think,
of way?
yeah, be more advanced, definitely. But obviously we keep saying like the system. I don't actually know what Rangers' system is right now, to be honest. I mean, we can't really defend. Our midfield's disjointed. We're getting no service to the striker, and the striker's not offering much of a threat. So maybe we need to look at the system, because I believe that the players we have signed are quality. I quite like a lot of the players. They seem to play well for a couple of games, and then obviously I've heard people say overcoaching. Well, no overcoaching in defence. I mean, we're not doing the fundamentals in the back, and corners at set pieces. I mean, honestly, my daughter's like under 10s team, better organised at the back for corners. Like they cover both posts. They put a defender in front of the goalkeeper. It's just simple stuff. They pick up their opponents. Sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent there.
No,
I'm quite passionate about that. But yeah, I think this boy, like I say, she's honestly, game of look, he looks really talented. And I think we just need to give the players the proper platform to go out and show what they've got, because we've definitely improved the quality on last season. I think they just need to be allowed to show what they've got in a more organised and traditional kind of formation or whatever.
Cristino, do you know much about Leo Walter? I'd love to say I do, but I definitely don't. I'll need to take Stevie's word for it that he would come in and improve the squad, but any of you guys know much about him?
I watched a few videos, Kev, earlier on today, and I've seen his name banded about, and I think, as Stevie said, I think you look at his heat map where he plays, right, and I think at the moment, does he fit the model Rangers have got right now? I think he would, based on his heat map. I watched some videos of him. Looks a tidy player. I think he would definitely bring something to Rangers, and I think his stats speak for himself as well. And look, for a transfer market, but I know they're saying 3 million in there. If you get him around that price, you'd be absolutely buying stealing a watch, I think, off him at that point. But I think, look, great player. I think he'd be really good for Rangers. I think my challenge on this one, Kev, is that I think one of I wouldn't say Cameron. I think Cameron's done enough there. I think Barron, for me, is going to go out and load this season. I can't see him getting a run, which is a shame, because I think he's a good Scottish player, and I think it'd be really good for us. But I think he's one that's going to go, if I'm being honest. And then, as the guys are saying, you could see any one of Diomande or Raskin, depending on the rumours that are going about. So I think you need somebody else in there, especially if you're going to lose 2 of those 3 potentially. The jury's still out. Some of the players Rangers have brought in at the moment, they're great players and they look good on paper. Probably doing a disservice to Asgard from when he came on on Saturday. Did he come on midweek? But I just think the boy looked lost and didn't look fit. And again, that's a worry for me, because he's meant to be one of the better players that came in. So yeah, and as Stevie said, look, what a name. Walter, that's a crack name. That would sell the jerseys every day, so it would. So you'd push for that one. But no, I think the guy would be a really good player. I think he would come in and certainly make a difference for us. And he's a person that would probably fit into Russell Martin's system the way he plays it at the moment, is what I would say.
For me, and I know I've actually sat and said priorities for left back, priorities for up front, priorities for out wide, priorities everywhere. But I think for me, midfield's a priority. I think that's where we're not creating enough chances. I think it's really hard to assess some of our attacking options, because I just don't think the ball's getting into them quick enough. Also, I think we're wide open when we're getting dispossessed in the middle of the field, and I think the gaps in between the midfielders is huge, whether that's down to system, whether that's down to the players that are unable to play the system correctly. I don't know. Do you know midfield for you, is that again another priority? And I'm asking you, I think it's the third position I've asked if this is a priority, but
no, there's a complete lack of cohesion, and that's really, really bad in terms of how because the importance of the midfield in Scotland is the most important, in fact, the most important area, because as Gerrard learned quite quickly, you've got to win the midfield in Scotland to be successful, and also to challenge, and they don't know where they're going, where they're meant to be at certain points, with who's meant to cover, who's meant to sit, and as you said, the holes in the team is just ridiculous. And one of the positions I wanted when we were just coming into the transfer market and stuff, and it was the position I wanted filled last season, was the night number 6, somebody that was just going to sit in front of the defence, who's the composer of the orchestra, as I put it. That person to sit there who's, physical, a leader, just somebody like that who is able to tell players, no, you need to sit, you need to go. Somebody who is orchestrating the midfield, and we don't have that. Rothwell was signed on that premise, but one of the comments that I keep hearing in my head is that he's lightweight, and you can't be lightweight in Scotland. But we desperately need, for me, I think that is very important in the squad. And again, I'd be looking at somebody of a certain age to come in and do that job. And last summer we were very close to signing, well, we don't know how close, but apparently we're quite close to signing that. Was it Juan Jordan of Seville? He was about 30-year-old, and I feel that he would have came in and filled that void. But we didn't actually sign him, and we didn't sign anybody that was going to come in instead of him, and we still need that person in. So for me, that's definitely needed. And if you have somebody in the midfield like that, then you will be able to allow players such as Raskan and Cameron and whatnot to have more freedom and be able to play to their strengths. Because if you think about it, last season, Raskan's best form was when he was slightly further forward in the centre of the park, and he's not able to even closely replicate the form that he had in the second half of last season. So for things like that to all come into play, we desperately need somebody that's going to come in and give some much needed steel and structure to the midfield.
Absolutely, mate. And Chris, we're going to move on to your 3 guys that you wanted to suggest, and starting off with Daniel Burgia. I've definitely,
Yes.
definitely. You had messed that surname up. I should have read through these first and practiced. But talk to me about this guy, mate, and how you think he'd come in and benefit us.
I think I said to earlier on, Kev, I think we need somebody who's up front that can be physical. I think this boy is. We've seen it last year with him when he played for FSSB last year, played for Cluj the year before that. I think he's a good boy to have up front. He's a good target man. I think his stats again speak for itself. Touches in the box is incredible. When we don't seem to have a striker that can get anywhere near the box at the moment, and this guy, that's where he plays. I didn't realise till we were coming out the pre-show, Kev, that and the guys watching are probably thinking I'm just saying this guy because he scored against Aberdeen. I didn't realise he'd scored against Aberdeen tonight. So if he was to come in Rangers, I think that would be a good starting point for him, scoring against Aberdeen at some point. So Rangers fans would take to him, I think, for that. But no, I think this guy, 25-year-old, he's the type of player that Rangers should be going for. He's a big target man, 6 foot. You can see stats. He's all about playing in the centre of the goal. That's his position. That's where he should be. I think Rangers need a no-nonsense striker at the moment. I said last week on one of the pods I was on, I said Antonio Cholak type striker. This guy reminds me of a young Antonio Cholak. And I think with the service that you would get from Gassama, Ant-Man, and then obviously that midfield, however you set that trio up, I think this guy would score goals. And he'd be an absolute tremendous player for Rangers. Whether we could get him or not is another thing. He's contracted to 2029. But again, as I said, the stats speaks for himself. I think he's played 3 matches Europa League this season, 3 goals he scored. He's played 3 in the league, scored 1. So his goal ratio is quite good. I think looking at him, would he fit the system that Rangers play at this moment? I think he would, because you look at even during the week there, and when you played against Bruges, the amount of balls they could put into the box, and Danilo was nowhere. Even when Eagleman came on, the amount of balls they get played into the box, Eagleman's out the wide right-hand side, or he's out the left-hand side, and there was nothing in that middle section for me, Kev. And I think this is the type of guy you would need. And you can see from his heat map, he is, obviously, he's right-sided, he's right-footed, and that's where most of his heat map's going to be. But he's a guy that I think would come in and make a real difference for Rangers. He'd be a marquee signing, I think, if we can get him in. And And I think Doug's just said, there you go, an assist against Aberdeen tonight as well, along with his goal. So for me, I think, look, if Rangers were to target this guy, whether it be this season or whether it be in January, I think he'd be an absolute fantastic striker for Rangers, and the backup that we would give him would help him score a lot of goals, I think.
And I suppose Dad was posted in that RM doesn't like a target man. I suppose my question for that, because I don't know a lot about him, is he someone that's able to link up play? I think my issue with Danilo is I think he drops too deep sometimes.
Yeah.
Is he someone that's able to link up?
Absolutely. I don't think he drops as deep as what your Dessers and Danilo would do. So you look at Dessers and Danilo, they're nearly on the halfway line at certain times. And then before you know it, they kind of get back. This guy's got a good ton of pace. If you watch him, you can see how he can run. He's got a really good ton of pace. I remember him last year. When we were looking at FSSB, and when we looked at them beforehand, I thought this guy's going to be quite worrying when we come up against them. He's played really well in the league. It's a tough league. It's not the easiest league to play in, and I think he's got that pedigree. He's scored the goals at Cluj beforehand as well. And as you say, yes, he is. He's a player that can link up, but he wouldn't drop too deep, I think. And I think you say there's somebody said he doesn't like a target man. I agree. Probably Martin doesn't like a target man. He likes to have that link up play. But I think you need this. You need somebody who's going to be able to be a target man. You need someone who's going to score goals. As much as Dessers has scored 30-odd goals for his last season, there's still question marks over Dessers. There's still question marks over how he plays. There's still question marks over his work rate during games for me. This season as well, you've seen in the game against Victoria Pilsen, his antics cost him his injury at that point, and that's just the side of him I don't like to see. This guy, he's young, he's hungry, and I think if you gave him an opportunity at a club like Rangers, I think he would thrive. And he would thrive whether it be in Russell Martin systems or whether it be in a new manager system. I think he would thrive with Rangers and scores a lot of goals.
Perfect, mate. And listen, I think we need someone that can score goals. Let's face it. And I think you referenced Anthony Cholak. I thought he was probably the best finisher that we've had for as long as I can remember, if I'm honest. We need someone that can put the ball in the net. And the second player, you're definitely challenging me here tonight, mate, with the names. Lucas Esquivel. Hopefully I've got that one right. If you talk me through that one, mate, and again, position he plays and how you think he'd come in and benefit.
Absolutely. So this is a young guy. He's 23 years old, right? And he plays in where Jeff Tees just went to, the Brazilian league, right? So he's an Argentinian and he plays in the Brazilian league. And I think that this is not, it's a position I think is a priority, right? I really do. I think the left back, as you say earlier on, Kev, if at the start of the season you said to me we were going to be struggling for a left back, I wouldn't have believed you. The fact that we had Jeff Tees there, Yilmaz there, maybe I've thought Yilmaz would have went out and somebody coming in, a bit more experience, right? But look, we are where we are. Yilmaz is possibly going to go. Jeff Tees already away. We don't have, other than Mikoma, we don't have anybody else in there. Now, this boy, yes, he's young. He's probably a little bit more inexperienced than what we'd have hoped for. But look, one thing I like with this boy, look at his heat map. He doesn't drift away from that left-hand side of the pitch. He brings you a balance there. And he's up and down that left-hand side like nobody's business. And his stats are fantastic. Look at a couple of stats I want to pick out. Look at his passes to the final third. Look at his progressive passes. It's all forward for this boy. And I think whilst yes, at 23 and people will say he's inexperienced and he's not played at the top level, he's playing in Serie B in Brazil at the moment. I think anyone that can play in those type of leagues, they're tough leagues. They're tough leagues to play in. And you've got to have a bit of metal about you. I think he's a boy that could come to Rangers, really excel for us, and really put a bit about him. Because if you watch some of his videos, there's a few videos on YouTube and on X and things, and he looks really, really tough. He's a really, really strong defender. Doesn't lose too many battles. He's very fast. He can get that ball up and down that wing, and he can chase it. And that's what we need. We need somebody who can do it. Now, I think Aaron's in the comments sounds a little bit like Jeff Tees 2.0. For me, Jeff Tees, I think, was, if you look at Jeff Tees, you knew he was a work in progress. You knew he was going to be somebody that would need to develop. This guy, I think, could come in based on what he's got just now and excel even further again. So I think he'd been 3 million thereabouts. You could maybe get him for a little bit less than that, especially if you're taking him over here. But I think he'd be an absolute cracking player. I had a wee look to say Argentinians. So if you look back at our Argentinian records, you've had the likes of Claudio Canidia, you've had Gabriel Amato, and I think you've had one that probably everyone forgets is Federico Nieto. So it's not, we've not had a great history with some of them. I think Claudio Canidia was the best one, but I think if this boy came in, if Rangers were to scout this guy and bring this guy in, I think he would set them alight. And I think the fact that he stays in that left-hand side and that's his position, he's not one that's going to go wandering the other side of the park and leave you with gaps wide open at the back. So for me, I think it'd be a great opportunity. He's what we need with crosses and assists as well. So his stats for me speak for themselves, Kevin. I think it'd be a really great player for Rangers.
No, sounds good, mate. And Stevie, any thoughts on Lucas Escobar?
He looks a really tidy player. Argentines generally travel. I know not everybody's keen on South Americans, but all of them, Argentines usually do better abroad. Gabriel Amato, by the way, what a player he was. I would give him I won't tell you what I would give to have Gabriel Amato peak in the Rangers team, by the way. But yeah, I like look at him, striker as well, by the way. A minute ago, I'm not going to pronounce it either, but he kind of reminded me of Jelic. You know, he did well against Scottish teams in Europe before he came to us. Yeah, both those players look excellent to me.
And do you know, I don't know if you had to nip away there, but Chris, do you think it's a priority then for that back line, or your back? Do you think it's a priority that we start to get permanent signings in at that back? I thought the idea of having 3 loan players in the back four is a wee bit messy, especially going into next season and try to build for the future. Do you think getting some more permanent transfers in that back line would be beneficial?
Aye, definitely. I think try to be more optimistic. When Ross Graham had suggested, it's not a good look having 3 of the back 4 loan signings, and I'm all for it if they're going to be improving us short term for us to be successful long term. But in terms of, again, I'm going to use sort of point I raised earlier on about getting faith back amongst the support and giving the fans a lift, seeing permanent signings being made as to loan signings, I think would go a long way to giving the manager some much needed credit in the bank. And getting a signing to be so Jeff Day, like just use this guy for example, we sell Jeff Day and we sign this guy who's better than Jeff Day and we still have change left over. That type of thing, not just Russell Martin getting credit, but Thirlwell getting credit as well. If that type of situation was to occur, I think, permanent signings is a must.
Absolutely. And Chris, moving on to your third player, someone I'm actually probably a big fan of, to be fair, which is Nectar Triantis, obviously at Hibs last season, contracted at Sunderland. Where do you think he'd fit into our team, and what do you think he'd benefit?
I think this is a boy. The reason I picked this one, right, was because, again, coming back to the conversation we had in the midfielders, and I know that I take the point the guys are making in the comments and things. We've got lots of midfielders at the moment, right? Even to the point where Bayrami was left out midweek there in the European squad. So I take that point on board, but I just think there's still a few players who are going to leave that middle position. As I said, Barron was one of them. I'll be honest, Kev, I'm not convinced with Joe Rothwell just now. I really am not convinced with him. Some are saying that he's not up to fitness. I seen a picture that was going about the other day that didn't look and fit at all when you watch him and you see him. So for me, this guy here, Nectar Triantis, I can only go with what I've watched for this guy last season. Anytime Rangers came up against this guy, I thought he absolutely controlled it in the middle of the park against us. I think Hibs played him in midfield mostly. A couple of games he went to centre back and played in centre back, and from what we see, he done really well for Hibs in there. I think he's a cracking player. I think at the price he would come for, he would be an absolute steal. Obviously, transfer market's valued at £1 million. He's a 22-year-old player. He's got a lot of potential. If he came to Rangers and done well a couple of seasons, he's one that you could be selling on for double digits. I've got no doubt on. I think his stats, again, if you're looking at some of the stats and his interceptions and his duels won and his assists and long passes, I think one of the big things about was his long passes. He likes to play a ball from defence to strikers. He likes to play cross park balls as well. I think that's something that we need at Rangers. And he's got really good passing into the final third as well. So for me, this is a guy that I think is a no-brainer, and I'm honestly astonished that Rangers hadn't looked at this guy. Now, I just wonder to myself, Kev, if, and I'm not for a minute saying this guy should be the manager, but if Barry Ferguson had stayed as the manager for Rangers, would this guy have been one of the guys that looked at? And I've got a sneaky suspicion he would have been, because they've seen what he can do. They came up against them a couple of times, and I think this guy is a type of a player that Rangers should be saying he's low risk, essentially. If it was me just now, and I know some might not agree with this, but why not put a bid in? Why not take him? Maybe throw in one of our players like Barami or somebody like that if you were going to try and put a wee exchange value in there. Whether someone's going to see Barami or not, I don't think so. But he's the type of player you would want, I think, to come in. Nectar would be a cracking player. I honestly think if Rangers look at this guy and they say he's not for us, I'm really questioning some of the scout move we do, because this guy's proven it in the SPFL. He's been there last season. He was there a little bit before that as well, and he's shown that he can be a proven player in that position. And if you can play well on that Hibs side, there is absolutely no doubt he could come into Rangers and play really well for us going forward. And I just think he's a really low risk option, but someone who would give you really high potential and a good output at the end of it if you can sell him on for a good few million after that.
To be fair, I couldn't agree more on Triantis. To be fair, I think when you're looking to bring in players that understand the league, what it's going to be like, he fits that bill, and he was one of the best performing midfielders in the league last season as well. Stevie, what's your thoughts? You actually look like you want to come in anyway. But...
Sorry, mate. Just really quickly, I totally agree. Cracking player, but do you know what he had last season at Hibs? Shape. Hibs were brilliant last season at keeping their shape and discipline. He had that platform. I don't know if you get that at Rangers right now, to be honest, to be brutally honest. But yeah, I totally agree with that as a signing. That would be a cracking bit of business. If we can get him across the line, he would definitely add that, not just his talent, but I think he's quite physical and steely about him as well. So yeah, he'd be a great signing. But we need to it's another guy that he needs a platform to go out and play. I know Hibs are getting absolutely pumped tonight or whatever they were last time I looked, but last season they had like a tremendous season, and he kind of flourished in that kind of like disciplined role.
Definitely. And do you know any thoughts on Triantis?
He would bring some much needed physicality to the midfield. Kind of like it was a bit no nonsense, wasn't he? And when he played for Hibs last season, I've got, I know people are Hibs fans, and he seemed to handle him. It wasn't just, against us that he would, like a lot of players do, they raise their games, and the 3-4 times that they play Rangers is the only times that they really play to their actual ability all season. But he was apparently really good against the hammer throwers of the league and stuff, which is something that we've lacked those type of players for far too long to remember now. And a player that he kind of reminded me of now, Kev, I don't know if you can remember, but he reminded me a bit like Gordon Petric. Just that type of player who was just solid and could play the league with ease. And that's something I think and I think Petric could play centre half and centre mid as well. So having players that are obviously able to play different positions is good for squad depth. So that would, and as mentioned there, the ability to bring in a lot more money than what we sign them for is obviously the player trader model that that we're running with. So yeah, it definitely ticks all the boxes. And like Chris said, it would be, you know, nonsensical to overlook players like this because we are struggling. And one of the reasons we're struggling is because we don't have players like that in the squad.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. And I suppose, thanks guys for talking us through the different slides that we've got there tonight. And what I'd be interested to hear for each of you is, what do you think would be a successful window? So obviously I think it's just under a couple of weeks left, the transfer window. Chris, what would make a successful window? I suppose incomings and outgoings.
I think outgoings, Kev, you need to get rid of the guys that are not contributing at all. So I know, for example, you like Cifuentes, he's potentially on his way back to the MLS again. I think the guys like, for example, Matondo and Ben Davies and stuff, those guys need to be off the books. They need to free up a lot of that wages at Rangers because they're sitting there doing nothing at the moment and they're just taking the money and look, fair play to them, that's what they're doing, but it's just not helping us at the moment. So for me, a successful window has to be get the players out that are not. I think we heard today, and some of the news outlets, up to 9 players potentially could be on their way out between now and the end of the window. I think from an incoming point of view, look, all the players we've touched on, look, it's us saying here's what we would think would be good, right? And I think the guys in the comments and what we've heard across X and the social media channels over the last few days has been that Rangers needs a marquee signing. Have we got that marquee signing yet? I don't think we have. I really don't. And that's what we need. We do need a marquee signing. The challenge is, and I would say this, and I know there's some names getting banded about like Vardy and things like that, right? I don't see Vardy's been a marquee signing, if I'm being honest, right? I think somebody at that age, somebody who is going to come to the end of his career, he's not a Jermaine Defoe. That's the marquee type of signing. He's not that, right, as far as I'm concerned. And I think if that was the type of player Rangers were going for, that's not for me a successful transfer window. But I do think we need a marquee signing in. I think I know we touched on some players there, Kev, left back, centre defence from mid, and the striker for myself. But I could have given a centre back in there as well, because I think we do need a big commanding centre half. That defensive structure at Rangers at the moment is shocking. I don't know whether you can blame Giga or whether you can blame Suter, or they both have to take equal measures in that. So for me, in summary, I would say, Kev, get a marquee signing in, hopefully a striker at that point, and get a good striker in there. And if you can get a left back type scenario, I think that'd be really good. Plus, obviously, the ones out that we're talking about, free up a bit of cash, leave us some cash for January, because you want to try and do something in the January window. It's always nice to bring a player or two in the January window and try and see what they can add in the second half of the season, especially when we're going to have, as you guys know, some players leaving to go and play in the I can't remember, is it the AFCON in January, January type thing. So that's going to leave a big bit of a gap for Rangers. So yeah, I think you leave a bit of money, get players in January, get some players off the books and at this end of it, and maybe try and get another couple of signing-ins, but one of them at least a marquee for me. And look, if you can do that, fans will be happy. Fans will be happy with it. Could the marquee signing be a new manager? Who knows?
And I think it was always going to be difficult to get it all done in one window. The squad needed huge surgery. And do you know what would make a successful window for yourself, mate?
Well, I think when the transfer window had started and I got asked a question what I'm most looking forward to under the new regime, and I said I'm actually looking forward to the next 2 or 3 transfer windows to see this squad be a title challenging squad. So in terms of that, to look back on that now, because there's been a couple of outgoings of the first team squad, kind of like, well, we need to be shifting on the deadwood players that Chris just mentioned. So to echo everything pretty much Chris said, get the players out, another two or three signings in. But I'm wanting, for me, a marquee signing, not just for the centre forward, but maybe to contradict myself, but a marquee signing, maybe not necessarily marquee, but a statement signing for like left back, for centre half type thing, you know. that to me would be a successful transfer window. And the deadwood, like, you know, players like Matondo, who's just coming back from injury, who's been absolutely rank rotten for us over his Rangers career, is going to be it's good. Like, you know, even the best negotiator on the planet would struggle to move him on. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if he's still part of the squad. So we've got to obviously give a bit of patience to that, but we definitely need to be shifted on the deadwood for sure. And if we can get in, you know, a starting centre half, starting left back, starting left centre half, marquee signing and statement signs to say, look, this is us. We're going to be challenging. And again, to reiterate, give the fans a much needed lift and credit in the bank. But yeah, in a long-winded way, that's what I think a successful transfer window would be.
I think definitely probably the key ones I think that definitely been moved on is your likes of your Cifuentes, your Matondos, your Davies, your Yilmaz, all players that are probably on a relatively high wage as well, which unfortunately does make it then difficult to move them on. But I think they're definitely the key ones to try and move on. Stevie, what about yourself, mate? Successful window?
Just to reiterate what the lads have said, we need to move on. A lot of those players, they're taking up a wage, they're taking up space. I can't imagine they're a great influence around the place because everybody knows that it's time for them to move on. So the sooner they're gone, the better. The squad needs trimmed. I would like to see 3 more players come in. The marquee thing, I think that's gone for the fact that we're not getting the Champions League. Well, very unlikely we're going to get the Champions League now, unless there's an absolute miracle in Belgium next week. I can't really see that happening. So really just for me, 3 more quality players. Could be a left back, centre back, midfield player, striker. I know that's 4. But yeah, any of those positions would really beef up the squad a bit. As long as they're, you know, quality. It doesn't have to be like a superstar or whatever. Just somebody who's got like physicality and they're ready to battle. And if they're a leader, even better, because as we've kind of covered, you know, we really need that in that dressing room right now. We've needed it for a long time, but any guys that are coming in, you really want them to be, you know, guys that are ready for the actual proper battle of Scottish football. That's important because we're really lacking that.
And listen, we can be optimistic, and we're going to qualify to the Champions League next week, and we'll get all the signings that we're all looking for. But no, I could agree more. I think everyone will agree the league's the most important thing this year, and I think we really need to get the season started come this Sunday. And we need to get some extra bodies in the door and also leaving. So I definitely couldn't agree more. I just want to take time to thank everyone, obviously, for watching, posting all your comments. There's been tons and tons been sent in this evening. But with Big Ask, I know we've got loads watching on Twitter this evening. I think it's sitting at 376. Big Ask is if you could head over to the YouTube channel and like and subscribe the video and subscribe to the channel. It's obviously free to do so, and there's loads and loads of content coming in just about every single day from the Rangers Journal, and myself and all the rest of the guys here at the Journal would really appreciate it. Other than that, Chris, thanks for coming on, mate. It's a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure, Kev, to be on with the 3 of you. I think it's been a good discussion tonight, some good players there, and we look forward to Sunday, Kev. We look forward to see what happens, and let's hope we can get a win. Let's put a bit of positivity into it. Let's hope we can get a win on Sunday, possibly go into Wednesday night and see what miracle sort of can happen from there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the positivity coming back, Kev. I want to see Rangers do well, and as much as I give Russell Martin a hard time on this one, Rangers is what we're caring about. It's not any individuals, and we want to see Rangers do well. So I'm hoping come Sunday we can get a wee 2-0 victory. I would take that just now, and we move on to Wednesday night. Absolutely, mate. Dino, always a pleasure, mate. Thank you for coming on.
Aye, thanks for having me. Pleasure and privilege has always been on with you guys. Makes my week sometimes, especially after Tuesday's performance. But like Chris said, we can hope for better things. Hope has to surpass optimism in this situation.
Absolutely, mate. And Stevie, mate, it's been a while since we've been on a pod together, mate. Thanks for coming on.
No, thanks. Mate, thanks for having me. And just to kind of like again reiterate what Dean and Chris have both just said, that it's like it is a bit challenging just now. But personally, I took my daughter to her first Rangers game at the weekend, the Holloway game, and it was honestly one of the best days of my life. You know, like seeing the excitement in her face and like how much she enjoyed it, an amazing experience. You know, and that's what we're all overall for. It's like it's that fashion, and hopefully things will improve. Fingers crossed. But yeah, thanks very much for having me. Always a pleasure, never a bore.
Definitely, mate. I know that exact feeling. I took my wee boy to his first game a couple of weeks ago. Know that it was you got a better outcome. You got to see Rangers winning. I got to see us drawn with getting beat off Dundee, or drawn with Dundee. Sorry, poor. But yes, I agree. Great experience, and hopefully can bring them to many more good games in the future. But again, thanks everyone for joining us, and always remember every night is a Rangers Journal night. Thank you.